Welcome to the show. And please tell me where you're watching this video. Leave your reply in the comments below. They told the world we would starve. They warned that without their aid, the Sahel would turn to dust. But in 2026, the granaries of Burkina Faso are not empty. They are overflowing. 7 million tons of grain, a territory reclaimed not by foreign intervention, but by the calloused hands of its own sons. This is not a miracle. It is a reckoning. It is the sound of a nation tearing up the script of dependency to write a new chapter of dignity. While the world watched for a collapse, a revolution of the soil and the spirit was taking root. How does a country under siege feed itself when the global powers predicted its fall? The answer does not lie in charity. It lies in the refusal to kneel. Do not scroll past. This is not just news. It is the blueprint of African survival. Subscribe to witness the rise of the Sahel. The date is etched in the records. Early 2026. Prime Minister Apollinaire Joachim Kyélem de Tambéla stands before the Transitional Legislative Assembly. The atmosphere is not one of polite bureaucracy. It is the charged air of a war room turned reconstruction site. He is not merely presenting a report. He is unveiling a map that is being redrawn, village by village, hectare by hectare. For years, the narrative was one of shrinking borders. The terrorists pushed, and the state retreated. Fear was the only currency that traded freely. They are the arithmetic of liberation. The Prime Minister confirmed that nearly 74% of the national territory is now under state control. Do not let that percentage pass you by as a mere statistic. 74% means roads that are no longer death traps. It means schools where the bell rings instead of the gunshot. It means the sovereign flag of Burkina Faso, flying where the black standard of terror once cast its shadow. This reconquest is not an accident of fate. It is the result of a deliberate, grinding offensive. The army has been reorganized, not just in structure, but in spirit. The numbers speak of a massive mobilization: 16,000 new soldiers, 2,000 police officers, and 15,000 volunteers for the defense of the homeland VP recruited in a single year. These are not mercenaries. These are farmers who traded hoes for rifles, students who left classrooms to defend them. They are the human shield that turned the tide. And what is the fruit of this sacrifice? It is the return. The report cites a figure that should thunder across the halls of the United Nations: 1,160,935 people have returned to their homes. Across 871 localities, the silence of abandonment has been broken by the sounds of life. This is the return to the soil. The soil that was once soaked in the blood of martyrs is now feeling the footsteps of its children again. We often speak of territory in terms of kilometers, but for these 1 million souls, territory is dignity. To return to one's village is to reclaim one's name. The 73 prefectures reopening their doors are not just administrative buildings. They are lighthouses of the state's return. The 600 schools unlocking their gates are not just structures of brick and mortar. They are the incubators of a future that refuses to die. Yet, as the Prime Minister spoke, a heaviness remained. The victory is tangible, but the cost is etched in the scars of the wounded and the memories of the fallen. The land is secure, yes. The flag is flying, yes. But securing the land was only the foundation. To truly break the chains of the past, to ensure that this freedom is not fleeting, the nation needed to conquer a more insidious enemy, one that strikes from within the empty stomach. The gun can secure the border, but only the plow can secure the future. While the world focused on the sound of artillery in the Sahel, a silent, green revolution was taking place in the fields. This was the agro-pastoral and fisheries offensive, a campaign launched not against a human enemy, but against the tyranny of hunger and dependence. For decades, the neoliberal script read to African nations was clear. Do not subsidize your farmers. Buy our surplus. Wait for our aid ships. In 2025, the government of Burkina Faso took that script and threw it into the fire. They declared that food production is not a market activity. It is a defense strategy. The results, presented in the 2026 State of the Nation address, are nothing short of a geopolitical earthquake. In a region where international bodies constantly forecast famine, Burkina Faso achieved a historic cereal production of over 7 million tons. Let that number sink in. This is not barely scraping by. This is a coverage rate of 126% of national needs. The granaries are not just full, they are overflowing. The narrative of the starving Sahel has been shattered by the reality of the Burkinabe harvest. How was this achieved? It was not magic. It was the state returning to its duty. The government mobilized tractors and manpower to plow over 51,000 hectares of land for free or at subsidized rates. They did not wait for the market to correct itself. They intervened, delivering nearly 70,000 tons of fertilizer and over 12,000 tons of improved seeds directly to the hands that feed the nation. The production of rice, the staple that often bleeds African economies of foreign currency, surged by 34%, crossing the threshold of 1 million tons. This is what sovereignty looks like. It looks like 35,000 hectares of rehabilitated irrigated perimeters. It looks like the 53,000 tons of fish pulled from national waters, creating jobs where there was once only resignation. But the most profound shift was in who did the farming. The president's initiative mobilized everyone. The VDPs, the very volunteers fighting terrorists, laid down their rifles to pick up hoes during lulls in combat. Internally displaced persons, detainees, and defense forces worked side by side. They turned the act of farming into a patriotic duty. They proved that a nation under sanctions, a nation denied loans, can still feed itself if it has the will to till its own soil. This harvest is a message to the world. We do not need your pity. We need our land. The seed has been sown, and the crop has been gathered. The specter of famine has been chased away by the sweat of the people. The granaries were full, yet the architects of this revolution knew that a full belly means nothing if the mind remains in shackles and the economy remains a prisoner of old habits. The harvest feeds the body, but what fuels the state? For decades, the answer was always the same: foreign aid, loans, and the crushing weight of debt. The neoliberal model taught us that development is something you import. In 2026, Burkina Faso proved that development is something you build. This is the era of the endogenous economy. It is an economy that looks inward before looking outward. The most striking proof of this new philosophy is the Patriotic Support Fund. In a world where citizens often hide their wealth from the state, the Burkinabe people have done the opposite. In 2025 alone, they mobilized over 222 billion CFA francs, a significant leap from the 99 billion raised in 2023 and 175 billion in 2024. Since its inception, this fund has gathered nearly 496 billion CFA francs. This is not money printed by a central bank. It is money given voluntarily by the people to defend their land. It is the ultimate vote of confidence. But the state did not just ask for contributions. It demanded justice. The mining sector, often a playground for foreign exploitation, has been brought to heel. In 2025, national gold production exceeded 94 tons, with nearly 43 tons coming from artisanal and semi-mechanized sectors. This gold is no longer just leaving the country in silence. It generated budget revenues of over 776 billion CFA francs. The government has tightened its grip, launching tax audits on over 3,300 companies and recovering more than 47 billion CFA francs that would have otherwise vanished. The fight against fraud was ruthless. Over 2,165 tons of shea nuts intended for illegal export were seized. The message is clear. Our resources are for our development. The days of looting are over. This economic resilience forces us to ask a difficult question. If a nation under sanctions and security threats can raise billions from its own citizens and resources, what excuse remains for those who still wait for validation from the World Bank? Tell us your thoughts in the comments. The internal house was being cleaned. The funds were being raised. Prosperity was rising from within. But outside the borders, the old powers were watching, and the diplomatic tectonic plates were about to shift. While the domestic economy was being fortified, the government turned its gaze outward. For decades, African diplomacy was often a performance of politeness, a diplomacy of convenience, designed to please donors in Paris, New York, or Geneva. In 2025, Burkina Faso set fire to that script. The message delivered to the world was unequivocal. We are no longer a testing ground. We are no longer under trusteeship. This was not empty rhetoric. It was backed by irreversible action. In February 2025, the nation withdrew from the International Organization of La Francophonie. Why remain in a club where the language is shared, but the respect is not? 7 months later, in September 2025, the government went further, withdrawing from the Rome Statute of the International Criminal Court. The Prime Minister's words were a stinging indictment. These institutions had become instruments of neo-colonial domination used to discipline the weak, while the strong acted with impunity. But they did not just walk away. They walked together. The solitude of the brave was replaced by the strength of the pack. The Alliance of Sahel States AES, uniting Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, ceased to be a mere military pact. It evolved into a confederation of destiny under the rotating presidency of Ibrahim Traoré. Assumed in December 2025, the AES is becoming a tangible reality for the common citizen. It is no longer just about soldiers fighting together. It is about people living together. The introduction of the AES biometric passport and a unified identification card signals the erasure of colonial borders. The creation of a confederal investment bank and a unified media network broadcasting from Bamako and Ouagadougou proves that they are building their own financial and informational architecture. This is the daring geopolitical chess game played by Ibrahim Traoré, where pawns refuse their role and crown themselves kings. They have diversified partnerships, opening doors to Russia, China, Iran, and Turkey, not to find new masters, but to find partners who understand the language of mutual respect. They walked away from the old tables of power to build their own. But the road ahead is not paved with gold. It is paved with challenges that will test their resolve like never before. Diplomacy opens doors, but only infrastructure keeps them open. As the sun sets on the old era of aid dependency, a new era of construction has dawned. The government understands that a sovereign nation cannot live on slogans alone. It must live in decent homes, travel on paved roads, and work in its own factories. This vision is encapsulated in the Faso Mayibo initiative. This is not merely a housing project. It is a national call to trowels and mortar. It is the philosophy that Burkinabe cities and villages must be built by Burkinabe hands. From Ouagadougou to the smallest hamlet, the face of the nation is changing. The initiative is accelerating urbanization, not through foreign contractors who repatriate their profits, but through local labor and local materials. It is a vast construction site where the noise of the cement mixer is the soundtrack of progress. But a house needs an economy to sustain it. For too long, Burkina Faso was a warehouse for raw materials, exporting cotton to buy back expensive shirts, exporting cashew nuts to buy back expensive snacks. In 2025, the chain was broken. An industrial offensive was launched, resulting in the inauguration of 11 new industrial units. Names like SN Faso, Burkina Faso, and Faso Golo are not just companies. They are declarations of independence. We are now processing our own tomatoes, weaving our own cotton, and tanning our own leather. The textbook said industrialization takes decades. The revolution is proving it can start in months when the political will is ironclad. And where the road ends, the digital signal begins. Sovereignty in the 21st century is digital. The government has launched a crusade against the dead zones, those forgotten corners of the country where the phone signal never reached. With 441 new sites activated and a target to achieve 0 dead zones by 2027, the aim is to connect every citizen to the pulse of the nation. This is not just about Facebook or TikTok. It is about telemedicine, mobile banking, and education, reaching the most remote village. The roadmap is clear. The risks are high. The old powers will not applaud this success. They will likely try to undermine it. But the momentum is irreversible. The foundation is set. The walls are rising. But the roof that must be built by the next generation. And the verdict of history awaits. The story of Burkina Faso in 2026 is not a fairy tale. It is a lesson in grit. It is a testament to what happens when a people decide that they would rather eat the hard bread of freedom than the soft bread of servitude. We have seen the figures. 74% of the territory reclaimed. 7 million tons of grain harvested. A diplomatic map redrawn from scratch. These are not accidents. In quote, they are the calculated results of a nation that stopped asking for permission to exist. The vision articulated by Ibrahim Traoré and executed by the people was never just about changing a regime. It was about changing the soul of a nation. It was about proving that the poorest among us often hold the richest reserves of dignity. But this story is bigger than one country. If Burkina Faso, landlocked, sanctioned, and fighting a war on multiple fronts, can break the chains of dependency, what excuse remains for the rest of the continent? What stops the giants of Africa from waking up? This is the question that will haunt the corridors of power for decades to come. Will history remember this moment as a fleeting anomaly, or will it be recorded as the spark that ignited the true African century? The answer does not lie in the hands of foreign experts. It lies in the hands of the youth, the farmers, and the soldiers who are building the Sahel brick by brick. Stand with sovereignty. Share this story to break the silence. Subscribe, and let us walk this path of dignity together.